It is the year 2014. Sadly, there are no hovercrafts. But for the lucky bunch of folks in this world with access to some extra money and resources, life is more automated, computerized, digitized, data-filled, and high-tech than ever before. The privileged children of the West learn to watch YouTube videos, play on mobile phone apps, and make art on iPads before they learn to read or write. I mean, why bother learning to read or write at all? Or speak foreign languages? Or do math? When there's an app for that. Children play with digital dolls instead of real ones, and spend more time with computerized animals than stuffed ones. Like the games of children, one of the adult world's earliest forms of entertainment and expression, art, has gone digital, virtual, roboticized, computerized. Fine art and machines are more intertwined than at any time in history. Our tools for consuming and producing art are constantly evolving and growing in sophistication and variety. Has the bohemian painter been replaced by the code-crunching computer geek? Will robots make all our art for us in the future? Or robots will make art for other robots? Robots can document human life non-stop, underwater, in outer space, inside the human body. They don't need lunch breaks or sleep. They have cameras for eyes. Surely, the documentarians of the future should be the robots, right?
I had a really difficult time drawing since I was a kid, so I always wanted to be able to render these images that were in my mind, and the drawing machine was a way for me to collaborate with the machine to create these works. It plays with a different way of producing work, where we don't have to rely on our own physical bodies to produce art. We can extend our system beyond our own hands. When I started deciding to be an artist, it started melding a bunch of different interests together. Eventually, the fabrication process converged with programming and into a new form that I got really excited about, where the programming could augment the physical world and make something move in an interesting and creative way. This is where I all started. It's a very simple mechanism. It just uses two motors and a little servo to pick the pen off the page. And it's driven by an Arduino that tells it how to move to that spot, and then an algorithm written in processing that actually decides how to draw and picks where and what movement it's going to make and what gesture it's going to draw with. It was a new form of art that I could express myself in through the tool, through the drawing machine itself. So I would keep creating new algorithms and new processes for it to create different and unique works of art. For the drawing machine that I'm running now, it's grabbing images from Google Earth and it's pulling satellite imagery and drawing it at random. So it doesn't actually know where this place is, but it's creating a map, an impossible map. And I think that loss of communication and that failure for a machine to communicate properly is what I find exciting, and the randomness in which it produces these results. I created a way for the drawing machine to produce work completely unaided by humans. And the way I did that was I put a cricket in a box and I had a camera track the location of that cricket around space. And as that cricket moved, it would draw in real time on the wall. So unknowingly, the cricket was the artist creating the drawing over time. But that was a complete lack of control on my part. I produced the system for it to create the work, and then I let the bug roam wild. And I find that the authority and who is the artist, the collaboration between the cricket and the machine, and then me as the producer of the experience, is all a really interesting concept of who is really making the work. It's a happy collaboration between me and the machine. I create the rules and the systems that it follows, and then I let it go. So I don't do any interaction with the machine once it's started. I let it do whatever it wants to. And when I show this machine, it's a performance. It's the machine performing and generating the work. And that, to me, is the art. When we see something that moves, we always relate it to something organic, something alive, and something tangible. And there's that weird middle ground where you know that it's a robot and you know that it doesn't have a thought, but the way that it produces the works makes you think about how we make work and how we create drawings. So there's always that consideration of how we experience the world as humans, and then how a machine can interpret that and fail to do so, or do so incorrectly, or actually reveal things about the world that we might not think of. The interpretation about persistence was with memory and forgetting. The wall is covered in glow-in-the-dark paint, and as the arm swings around like a clock, it produces an image on the wall. The minute you recognize what's happening, it disappears. So there's a play with our own memory and the futility of trying to remember something very clearly in the way that it passes over time. I think a lot of my video work harps on that a little further, of how time can be non-linear. As humans, we see from the past to the present to the future one line that moves through that time. But with a computer system and software, we're just representing that. If you were to dismantle that sequence, there's a new understanding of each moment. The bus piece I did was tracking buses as they moved down. And there's one tour bus in Chicago that would take the same turn at this one corner. And I stood there and photographed every single one, and then spliced each frame to match up. And the moment and the gesture of its movement was played out by a multitude of different buses making a turn. The way that we live in the moment, it's hard for us to notice these gradual progressions of things. And my work is meant to bring that timeline into something that we can comprehend, that we can look at and see the depth of it. So I use technologies and might hack them or reinterpret them or reuse them from other devices to create things that I've never seen before and produce works that could never have been made another way.
And this is, it's not just fun and games. I think one of the reasons I care so much about robots that use their body to communicate and use their body to move is, and I'm going to let you hear on a little secret we roboticists are hiding, is that every one of you is going to be living with a robot at some point in their life. Somewhere in your future, there's going to be a robot in your life, and if not in yours, then in your children's life. And I want these robots to be more fluent, more engaging, more graceful than currently they seem to be. And for that, I think that maybe robots need to be less like chess players and more like stage actors and more like musicians. Maybe they should be able to take chances and improvise, and maybe they should be able to anticipate what you're about to do, and maybe they even need to be able to make mistakes and correct them, because in the end, we are human. And maybe as humans, robots that are a little less than perfect are just perfect for us. Thank you.
If you're going to create a robot that could create art that was interesting for another robot, I guess the first question I would ask is, what is art for a human?
The idea of robots sort of creating art is a little bit tricky, because why would robots create art?
The very thought of building a robot spectator, I think, is intriguing, because it asks, what are the properties of machines that get expressed in a spectator?
I think my best advice, and it's very much colored by the type of research I do, is to try to add as many sensors as possible.
The spectator has to have, or it would be nice if it had a certain different ways of expressing itself, that to be in the groove, in rhythm with the performer.
It would be both very interesting if whatever the robot is responding to is imperceptible to the human being. It might even be cool if there's not even any action that we can see.
Maybe that for us is the real art. It's not so much that there's a robot that creates art and a robot that critiques art, but it's that by virtue of their interaction, they generate something new and unexpected.
We started out with human art for humans, and then we can think about maybe machine art for humans or human art for machines, but will we reach the point where there's machine art for machines and humans don't even understand why they like it or what they're doing with it?
One artist copies another's work, that's plagiarism. When a robot does it, apparently it's the future. Alex Kiesling sets to work in Vienna. Meanwhile, in London and Berlin, his two robot apprentices try to keep pace.
Auf jeden Fall ist es hier eine Premiere.
For sure, this is a world first. It's never happened before that an artist has worked over this long distance together with machines, with robots. This is an absolute world first.
The 31-year-old using an infrared sensor to trace the movements of his pen and send the signal via satellite to the robots in Trafalgar Square and Breitscheidplatz, who try to copy onto canvas the lines that he's drawing in Vienna. It's taken him 6 months to perfect the link-up with these industrial robots more used to life in a factory.
Also wenn man sich Kunst ansieht und zum Beispiel
When you look at art and examine the term factory is used by Andy Warhol, where his assistants worked on a mass production line, it can be interesting for the future, where artists can team up with robots as I've just done.
And as for the public, well, they're pretty impressed.
He draws the pictures at the same time in different locations, using robots, and I think it's a very amazing. And I study electronics engineering, and the communication skills are remarkable.
The three artworks will eventually be joined together and put on display in Vienna and London.
The future is just around the corner. In a workshop near Mount Fuji, a curious being has appeared. It's 3.8 meters tall and weighs 4 tons. It is a giant humanoid robot named Kuratas. Kuratas is a contemporary artist's creation. He holed up here for 2 years, building the robot with input from an expert. He calls Kuratas a work of art, but it's a sophisticated piece of machinery. A person seated inside can control the robot, move its limbs, and grab things. The artist says he was inspired by robots in science fiction tales and animation. That vision sustained him as he worked in solitude.
Things that were once unthinkable are becoming real. How will robots evolve? Well, military applications could be one option. They'll probably become more and more like humans. They could surpass us in strength and ability.
So now we can take an application like this, her brainwaves, and put them into a game or an experience. So this environment is responding to Geraldine's brain state. The line on the top, the yellow line, is her focus state. As she increases her focus, just like she's doing now, we start to change the environment, and you get more smoke coming out of the buildings. When you focus over 75%, it snows. Thank you for making it snow. The line on the bottom is her relaxation state. She's going to increase your relaxation state, and you'll see it reflected in the birds over there. Thank you, Geraldine. As you increase your meditation, the birds slow down, and it's kind of like you're stopping time as you meditate. The boat rocks. You can rock the boat for me. Thank you. Yes, you just did that. And the clouds jump up and down. If you blink, we can make the clouds jump. Whee! Thank you. So this is an example of how you can actually put yourself into technology to make it a truly immersive experience. How was that?
It's fantastic.
Awesome.
We're in an age now where bodies are blurring. We can indefinitely preserve a corpse. We can sustain a comatose body on a technological life support system. Cryogenically preserved bodies are awaiting reanimation. Blood that's circulating in my body now might be circulating in your body tomorrow. We can engineer new kinds of chimeric architectures in vitro, grow tissue and insert stem cells in vivo. So we're really at a time of the cadaver, the comatose, and the chimera. Well, I'm a performance artist, and I've performed for, well, yeah, this what am I sort of thing, I find it very difficult to answer. I mean, it's sort of...
It's an interesting question, right?
Well, not really. Let's just talk about the art.
And in this high-tech art world, where does the bottom, largest level of our socioeconomic pyramid fit in? How do people without access to our gadgets, gizmos, gadgets, bandwidth, and servers consume, view, and create art, express themselves? Will capitalism make sure the bottom rung of society gets a piece of the digital pie? I mean, they need to watch advertisements too, right? Where does the artist end and the machine begin? If we can't make art without a digital camera, software, hardware, internet, more hardware to view our art on, and more internet to distribute our art on, are we already cyborg artists, transhuman, hybrid artists, machinists? Are we already using artificial intelligence in our art every time we edit a video clip or run an action in Photoshop? How far are we from being robot artists ourselves?